Welcome to Spirit School. My name is Danielle Sarenk, also known as the Squamish Medium. I am the host of your Spirit School, where I will share all the lessons and learnings that I have uncovered through my intuitive development and mediumship development journey. I am a professional psychic and medium, an intuitive teacher and mentor, and I look forward to walking alongside you on this journey. Hello and welcome to Spirit School. This is episode 6. I'm going to be talking a little bit about what I feel is the responsibilities of people with mediumship and psychic intuitive development abilities who provide readings for public. Just some of the responsibilities I think that we carry along with these gifts. Some of the information I'll provide will be somewhat innately knowledgeable and in your awareness. Typically people who are drawn to this path hold strong boundaries and ethics anyways, but I have come across some instances in some of my sessions that I thought I would share with you during this podcast and video episode so that you can kind of have one of those Me Too moments where, something I say, you're like, oh, that happens to me too, or that happened to me as well. And one of my main reasons why I like doing this podcast is because I felt very alone in my spiritual journey. I had a wonderful teacher, but there wasn't always this vulnerable dialogue. So a lot of the time, I felt like I didn't have anyone to talk to about some of the experiences that I was having. So I really wanted to create a vulnerable space with this podcast and with this video series around being an intuitive professional. And let's get down and dirty about some of the not so rainbow and butterfly stuff that happens as part of this path. Another thing I just kind of wanted to preempt this podcast with is, this is my 6th podcast. I do notice people are starting to download and listen to it, and I haven't even shared it out with the world yet. I'm just kind of recording with the best intentions, and I do hope that people come across it, of course, but I haven't done any promotion with it. So people are experiencing it now. And one thing I really wanted to say is that, I'm not very tech savvy. I'm actually very surprised with myself that I have been able to completely figure this all out on my own, how to record and edit and upload it and even get it on iTunes. So, I do promise that if you stick it out with me in my podcast, I will eventually figure out how to make it sound better. But for now, I'm just really enjoying talking and sharing, and it is what it is. I heard that saying because I am a Virgo, and so that perfectionism and that you're not good enough, who are you, is definitely ingrained within my star makeup. And so I heard this saying, I think it was Jen Sincero, is done is better than perfect. So the second I heard that, I just started pressing publish on all my podcast episodes I had pre-recorded, because I cannot tell you how many times I recorded podcast episodes and just kept deleting them without even re-listening to them. And that's just part of my spiritual development journey and where I'm at. I say that to you with all the vulnerability, and maybe you'll find yourself in a very similar position one day, and you'll remember that I shared this story with you. So I really wanted to talk a little bit about the responsibility of a reader. And I was thinking back to my very first mediumship experience. And I had been told I'd been a medium since I was 17, and I started seeing readers myself. And every reader I ever saw said, you could do this. And I never believed them. It just wasn't in the realm of possibility for me, but I did enjoy sitting with mediums and reading about them and seeing them on TV, like hello callings. But, it was what it was. And so I was in an intuitive development class back in 2013 after the birth of my daughter, because I had a lovely experience with an amazing medium. And so I started doing her intuitive development classes. And one day, she texted me. I had to drive about 250 kilometer round trip to be able to make this class. It was a huge investment for me, not just financially, but with my time and having a baby at home. And so she texted me when I was about halfway there one day saying, I'm canceling class because so many people can't make it. And I just wrote something to the effect of like, oh, that's a bit of a bummer. I'm already halfway. It's rush hour, so I'm not going to be heading back. And she said, okay, just come anyways. And we'll figure something out. So we went, and only one other woman showed up for class that day. And she said, okay, let's sit down and like, let's take a deep breath. And she took me through some breath work and she asked me, what do you see? And I was able to say, I see a man with a woman. I feel a boy. I feel like he's younger. I gave an age. And I said, can I say a name? And she's like, say whatever you get. And I said a name. And then the other woman started crying. And she looked at me with these eyes and with this like, almost like desperation, like, you hear my son. And I didn't realize that she had just lost her son 8 months before, and I had said almost his name. I think it was something like I said Dustin and it was Justin. And so she kind of freaked out, and in a good way. But for me, as my first ever mediumship experience, my inners went, holy crap, like there is a lot of responsibility here, because this woman wants and needs to hear from her son. And because it was my first experience, I got scared and I backed off and I backed out. But it was definitely a huge learning for me. And it really made me see in that first instant the responsibility we have as mediums for our sitters, and that sometimes people sit with us that are in immense states of grief that we cannot even comprehend. And so we have the ability to bring through loved ones through evidence and through messages and through personalities that are very healing. But that's a big responsibility for a sitter. So the underdeveloped me, the not even started my mediumship development journey, I couldn't handle that pressure. And so I backed out of that connection and that link at that moment. I don't regret that experience, but I will say what happened afterwards was, you know, she would text me a lot and call me and invite me over to her house and then buy me gifts. And I finally had to kind of put up my boundary and say, you know, I don't really know what I'm doing. So I don't think that I can help you in the way that you want me to help you at this time. And I took that experience for my own personal integrity and ethics around my mediumship practice. Was I was not going to offer any readings for public until I had done like 150 practice readings. I think I set that goal for myself. So and I held to that, and it took me years. It actually took me a few years. I did constant mediumship development with a mentor. You know, I studied with Tony Stockwell and Mavis Patilla and Shanna Lee Gibson. Went to their retreats and their week-long, I guess, retreats and workshops. And then I've almost always had a mediumship mentor. And so I really kind of saw that responsibility early on. So one of the responsibilities I feel that we have as a medium is to practice, and practice in a way that it's very low risk for us, because we don't want to like be like, oh, we have a mediumship ability, let's hang up a shingle and start charging people. I really think that there needs to be a safe space and a safe way to practice and hone your abilities and kind of understand them, because you're kind of learning a new language. Now you're learning the language of spirit and the soul. And because we are going to be dealing with people who are grieving on the other end of it, we owe it to them, we owe it to ourselves, and we owe it to spirit and the spirit world to understand those faculties and understand how that communication works and the impact that communication can have. You know, I think mediumship abilities, I truly believe anyone can do it. If you put your intention to it, if you put your heart into it, I don't think God's going to deny anybody the ability to connect with departed loved ones. That is a strong belief of mine. But I will say I don't think everybody who has the ability may be waking up to it in their lifetime here. They may not even run into it. And people who even develop as a medium, I don't always believe are meant or called to give classic style readings, I should say. So there's a lot of pressure as you develop as a medium to do readings and open up a studio and do this, that. And I don't think that that's going to be everybody's path. Mediums would make lovely like hospice workers or death doulas or nurses, people who are working with people grieving and in pain. I also think too, for me, mediumship, I feel like it's just the cusp of my offering. Like, it is what I do now, but I also have always felt this real strong pull to doing energy healing. And not Reiki. I think it's actually going to be something a little bit more just mine, because I'm just waiting for it to kind of come to me. And I have had experiences with trance healing before. So I feel like even just like the mediumship journey for me is just the very tip of what I will be doing. But with that being said, I think one of the responsibilities we have as intuitive developing readers is to continue that development path, right? We are never done learning. Ever. So, you may outgrow a teacher, or a teacher may outgrow you, and you may, what happened with me is I was with my first teacher for 4 years, and then we parted ways, still remained friends. And then I went 6 months without a teacher, and then I felt like I needed something very specific. So I was asking Spirit to bring a teacher to me. And I heard this podcast, which inspired my podcast, Claire McNall. And I was like, this woman has exactly what I need. And what I really needed at that time in my development was somebody to listen to me give a reading and critique me. Have I picked up any bad habits? Am I being too vague? Is there any pointers that you can give me? And so I hired her for 8 sessions just to do that specifically. And then I will be looking for another mentor coming up around healing. So, I think it's a responsibility as somebody in intuitive development and wanting to offer this as a service to continue learning and never consider yourself to be done. So that's a really big responsibility. And another one I really wanted to say, going back to my original story around this woman who I was working with, and the responsibility I felt around her son and her son's passing was really around how we express the information that we get. Right? There's this fine balance between really honoring what you get through, communicating through your clairs, and I'll talk a lot more about the clairs in upcoming podcasts, but what you see, what you hear, what you feel, and what you know is really being clear. Like in my readings, I'm always expressing, I feel this, I hear this, I see this, because I never want it to be a complete mystery for my sitter. I don't want them to think that, I'm God, or I'm like some magical beast, because to me, mediumship connection is very subtle. It is magical, don't get me wrong, but it's very subtle. But I like to explain it to people. Maybe that's the teacher in me, but I like to explain it to people to take away some of that mysticism. And so I'm very clear about how I pass on that information. But sometimes we will receive information that we maybe shouldn't express it exactly how it came through us. And one of these examples I'd like to give is around, tragic passings. So just say you have somebody sitting in front of you and you can see a very tragic passing that you feel in your core may be a trigger for this person, or might be a little bit too graphic. Then there's other ways that you can express it. And that's all done through practice readings and experience. And really putting yourself in your sitter's shoes. So if I have a spirit who's showing me that they took responsibility for their own passing in a tragic way, I'm not going to tell that grieving mother, did your child do this, this, and this to them? I will actually say in a very authentic way, I have somebody who's younger here. I feel like it could be a child, and they are taking responsibility for their passing. That's enough evidence, and you don't need to get graphic. And I think that that's a really big responsibility that we have as a reader as well. And that's really the art of giving a reading. And that does take years and years of practice around it. And it's not being inauthentic to the information that comes through. It's actually, I think, being very responsible. And you just have to put yourself into that person's shoes. And the other thing I wanted to say too around this responsibility, and I think a lot of people will resonate with this, and because mediumship and the language of spirit really connects with us all differently, all I can share is my experience with it. But I also feel that we really get bits and pieces of information through our clairs, and they all link back to a reference that we would have had in some way, shape, or form. So, and that rarely comes through as like a neat and tidy story, right? So we talk about like translating the information. And so I don't think it's as much as translating, because I have seen it happen where people will get pieces of information and they'll tie it into a neat and tidy story, because that's very human of us to do that, right? We get things come up and we always want to make it neat and tidy, but that's not always how information comes through. So sometimes it's really about honoring the information that comes through. So as an example, so say I'm in a reading and clairvoyantly I'm picking up flowers. The story part of me saying like, oh, have you recently put flowers on their grave? Unless that actually comes through as a knowing or as a vision, then sure, say it. But some of the most impactful pieces of evidence that I brought through, as an example, I was reading for a colleague one day, and I just said, I'm just seeing a bunch of flowers. I had to honor it. And this woman was like, oh my God. And then she showed me some pictures of what just happened on the weekend. It all involved around her soul and a lot of flowers, right? So I didn't have to make that a neat and tidy story. I just honored it exactly how it came through, and my sitter understood it. Imagine the magic I would have taken away from that moment if I tried to make it into a tidy story and say, was she named after a flower? Did you just leave flowers on her gravesite or her memorial space? All that fun stuff. So I think that's also a really responsibility that we have, is around finding a way to understand how the information comes through to us and how we express it in a way that our sitter will understand, right? And those are big, hard lessons that I've had in my life, around trying to make it into stories, and I just completely lose my sitter, because sitters sometimes take everything you say as coming from spirit, right? So give them exactly what comes from spirit. I hope that's kind of like a good example of giving that to you. And then I think, I like to keep my podcast short and digestible. So the last one I want to talk about this, though there are a ton of responsibilities we have. So this is by no means an exhaustive list. But one of the other ones I really wanted to talk about was taking away people's free will, right? With mediumship abilities, there's also psychic abilities. I think that there's that saying, all mediums are psychic, but not all psychics are mediums. I don't know how I feel about that, to be honest with you, but I will say, even today, I had an experience where a client messaged me saying, my mother had so-and-so checked, because in that reading, I told them, I said, is your mom's health in good form? And I kept coming around my throat, and I'm like, I feel like I'm going to my thyroids. Well, I will tell you, that person went right to their mom, and their mom went right to that doctor and got their thyroids checked. So what we say in sessions, our clients listen. So I dedicated my ethics very early on to not be one of those readers who ever tells my clients exactly what to do. In a dramatic and extreme circumstances, as example, like quitting a job, leaving a spouse, these big lifestyle impactful changes in your life, like to sell your house, to buy a house. To me, a lot of this stuff kind of comes down to divine free will. And I'm never going to take somebody's divine free will away. So I always prep the people who sit with me. I am a psychic, I am a medium, but I'm not going to tell you exactly what to do with your life. And I'll give a good example of how this came up in a reading in a minute, but I'm never going to tell you to leave your partner. I'm never going to tell you to quit your job. But what I can tap into at a soul level is why you may feel disempowered to make this choice yourself. And to me, I call those kind of like soul readings. It's like getting to the real need of the soul. So yeah, you definitely feel an urging to like pick up everything and move and like quit your job and like maybe start over with a new partner, and you feel that. And so you come see a reader because you're like wanting somebody to tell you what to do. And some readers will tell you what to do, but I don't think that that's the responsibility of a reader. I think if we go a little bit deeper with our sitter, we can get to the core of why is this fight or flight coming up right now? And you'll be able to feel into something in the past, and they'll be able to click and resonate with that. Like, yeah, that's why I'm feeling disempowered right now. And if you go along that path, I think that you will find that person will be so empowered after they leave your presence that they may never need to see you again. And that's a beautiful thing as well, because they have felt that intuitive pull, they have cleared that block, we'll call it a block, and then they were able to make good decisions for themselves moving forward. So that's another responsibility that I feel that we have as a reader, is not to tell people what to do. I will tell you that I have had people sit with me where I have been able to tune into their marriages, and I believe that everything that comes to me I need to say, so I'm not going to ignore it. If Spirit's going to give me information about, a relationship issue that's coming up, then I am going to honor it and say it, but I'm never going to be like, ooh, are you thinking of leaving your partner? I'll come up with saying something around the lines of like, I'm feeling like I need to refer to partner, and I'm not feeling completely like holistic with it. So like, what's going on there? And I will tell you, I have had instances where people have like left their partners after they sat with me, even though I'm not the reader that's ever going to tell somebody to do that. And those always make me like a little bit more uncomfortable, to be honest with you, because that's just not how I roll. So if you come up with something that's like medical intuitive, if you come up with something that's like around that partnership or career changes, it's best to find, again, part of the art of reading, a way to express it to your sitter so that they understand that this is their choice, right? I'm feeling the energy of a desire for a shift in career is different from like, are you changing jobs? I feel like you're changing jobs, right? It's like we really need to find a way to honor the information in a way that doesn't disempower people. Because I have had people sit with me and they're some of my most exhausting readings. And people just want me to tell them exactly what to do. Like tell them with all certainty that they're going to be finding another job and that they need to go apply at Walmart or something crazy, right? So I think that we really need to be careful as people who are intuitively gifted on how we express that. And then I think the final responsibility I just want to say, sorry, I'm mucking around my computer because I'm still learning how to use all this. And then I think the final thing that I want to say as readers that we take responsibility for is our own health and well-being. As you go through this development journey, and I think anyone who's listening who is a reader themselves, you are very prone to sickness, you're very prone to exhaustion, you're very prone to energy sickness, and I have an episode all about that, because I don't know about everyone else, but I typically find that because I'm giving a spiritual service, I do a little bit less in the spiritual devotion and my own spirit because I'm pretty tapped out by the time I'm serving others and I need some of that preservation. So you really need to take responsibility on like doing your grounding work, doing your protective work, eating food from the grounds. And I'm the worst to give this advice. Trust me, this is still learning that I'm trying to iron out myself. But I think that you definitely need to find a way that nurtures yourself if you're going to be focusing on nurturing others. And that's a huge responsibility as well. I have been known to kind of postpone readings because I haven't been in a state that I've been able to take care of myself, and I don't feel like it's fair for me to take those clients that have paid good money to see me if I'm not going to be at my very best. So I take this part of my spiritual offerings very, very seriously. So that's something to consider as well. And we will go deeper into another podcast episode on different ways that we can nurture ourselves as spiritual readers. And I look forward to hearing your ideas as well. So here's my 6th podcast episode all around, what I feel are some key responsibilities that we have as readers. I would love to hear from you if you agree or disagree, or if there's things I could have missed, because I definitely will do more episodes around this theme. And so you can reach me at squamishmedium@icloud.com. I'm on Instagram at squamishmedium, SQUAMISH. I'm also squamishmedium.com and on Facebook, Squamish Medium. So if you've enjoyed this podcast episode and you would like to leave a review, I would absolutely love that, and share it with your friends because I'm still trying to work out how to self-promote with all comfort. Oh, and if you're watching the video, Spirit is here. Holy. So if you go into YouTube and go to Squamish Medium, I just had Spirit very visibly on the camera come in and out, and I'm just getting shivers. So I want to thank Spirit for showing up today and helping inspire me on this episode and helping me speak as clearly and truthfully as possible for everybody. So have a good day, everyone.